Listen, I have seen a lot of stupid things in my 17 cycles working security at the Bloodforge Arena. I have watched Krillian berserkers charge plasma turrets with nothing but rage and poor life choices. I have witnessed Velkoth priests try to convert carnivorous slime molds through the power of interpretive dance. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day a human walked into Grimjaw's pit without so much as a sharpened stick. My name is Vex, and I wish I could say I tried to stop what happened. I really do. The arena itself sits in the lower districts of Station Omega 7, where the laws are more like gentle suggestions and the smell of recycled air mixes with blood, sweat, and terrible decisions. It is the kind of place where you can bet your life savings on which contestant gets disemboweled first, and someone will actually take that bet. The Bloodforge runs 26 hours a day, 7 days a cycle, because apparently, there is always an audience for watching things try to kill each other. Grimjaw was our star attraction. 300 kills. 300. The thing was a Korthax Ripper, 8 feet of muscle, claws, and a jaw that could bite through titanium plating like it was birthday cake. His hide was covered in scars that told stories of every fight he had won, every opponent he had torn apart, every fool who thought they could take him down. Promoters loved him. Crowds loved him. Insurance companies refused to cover events where he appeared. So when the human showed up at the registration desk asking to fight Grimjaw, our booking manager, a 4-armed Quellan named Brisk, actually laughed so hard he pulled a muscle. You want to fight what now? Brisk wheezed, his upper left arm clutching his side. The human just stood there, calm as a monk at meditation hour. He was not particularly large by human standards, maybe 6 feet tall, with brown hair that looked like it had been cut with safety scissors and a face that seemed too relaxed for someone signing their own death warrant. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy, just a gray shirt and dark pants that had seen better days. Grimjaw, the human repeated, his voice steady. The Korthax Ripper. 300 kills. I would like to challenge him. Brisk's laughter died. You are serious. Completely. You understand he has killed 300 opponents, yes? Not fought. Killed. As in, they are no longer breathing, walking, or existing in any meaningful capacity. The human nodded. I heard. That is why I want to fight him. Now, here is where I should have stepped in. Here is where I should have done my job, pulled the human aside, explained that this was suicide with extra steps, and suggested he try therapy instead. But here is the thing about working security at a blood sport arena, you develop a very particular sense of professional curiosity. Also, the betting pools were already starting, and I may have put 20 credits on human survives longer than 30 seconds. What? I am not made of stone. Brisk processed the registration with the enthusiasm of someone filling out death certificates, which, to be fair, he essentially was. The fight was scheduled for that evening, prime time, because if a human was going to get shredded into confetti, we might as well sell tickets. Word spread fast. By the time sunset hit the station's external viewports, the arena was packed. 16,000 beings from 40 different species, all crammed into the stands, all waiting to watch what they assumed would be the galaxy's shortest sporting event. The betting boards were going insane. Most money was on Grimjaw killing the human in under 15 seconds. A few optimists gave him 30. One drunk Vorgelian had bet his ship that the human would last 2 minutes, that Vorgelian was either a prophet or an idiot. I still have not decided which. The human entered from the western gate, and the crowd erupted into a mixture of cheers, jeers, and confused chittering. He walked across the sand like he was taking a stroll through a park, completely unarmed. No weapons. No armor. Not even a helmet. Just him, the clothes on his back, and what I can only describe as an absolutely unhinged level of confidence. The announcer, a Zeltran with a voice like gravel in a blender, roared into the microphone. Ladies, gentlemen, and variations thereupon. Tonight, we have a special treat. A human, yes, you heard that right, a human, has volunteered to face our champion. Give it up for Marcus Cole. The crowd went wild, though I suspect half of them were cheering because they had already written him off as dead and wanted to see the spectacle. Marcus, that was his name, reached the center of the pit and stopped. He looked up at Grimjaw's holding gate, a massive reinforced door that had been dented and clawed from the inside so many times it looked like modern art. Behind that door, I could hear Grimjaw moving, his claws scraping against metal, his breathing heavy and eager. The beast knew what was coming. He always knew. A Brisk stood in the control booth above me, one hand hovering over the release button. He looked down at Marcus through the observation window, then at me. This is insane, he muttered. Probably, I agreed. Should we stop it? Can we? Brisk sighed. Fair point. He pressed the button, the gate exploded upward with a screech of hydraulics and tortured metal. Grimjaw burst out like a nightmare given physical form, all fangs and fury and 300 kills worth of muscle memory. The crowd noise hit a fever pitch. Credits changed hands across the betting pools at light speed, and Marcus? Marcus just stood there, Grimjaw charged. I have seen this charge 300 times, and it never gets less terrifying. The Korthax Ripper closed the distance in seconds, claws extended, jaws wide enough to swallow a small vehicle. Every instinct in my body screamed that this was it, this was the end, start calling the cleanup crew, but then something happened that I will remember until my dying day, assuming I survive long enough to have one. Marcus moved, not away. Toward, he dropped low, faster than my eyes could track, and rolled directly under Grimjaw's swipe. The claws passed overhead, missing by millimeters, close enough that I swear they cut a few hairs from his head. The crowd gasped, a collective inhalation of 16,000 beings who had just witnessed something their brains refused to process. Grimjaw skidded to a halt, confused. In 300 fights, nothing had ever moved like that. Nothing had ever gone toward him. The beast turned, slower this time, more cautious. His yellow eyes locked onto Marcus, and for the first time in his career, Grimjaw looked uncertain. Marcus stood up, brushed sand off his pants, and smiled. Not a cocky smile. Not a death wish smile. Something else. Something that made my scales itch. Hello there, Marcus said quietly. My name is Marcus. What is yours? The arena fell silent. 16,000 beings stopped breathing. Because Marcus had just done something so fundamentally insane that reality itself seemed to pause. He'd tried to talk to the monster. Grimjaw tilted his head, the gesture almost comically dog-like for a creature that weighed half a ton. His ears, if you could call those spike-covered protrusions ears, twitched. He made a sound, low and rumbling, somewhere between a growl and something I had never heard before. Marcus took a step forward. Just one. Slow, deliberate, non-threatening. I know they hurt you, he said, his voice carrying across the silent arena. I know what they did to make you fight. I am sorry. Brisk grabbed my arm so hard I felt bones creak. Is he apologizing to the murder beast? He hissed. I think so, I whispered back. Why would he do that? I have no idea. Grimjaw growled again, louder this time, and took a step forward. Marcus did not move. Did not flinch. Just maintained eye contact with a creature that could end him in less than a second. You do not have to do this, Marcus continued. You do not have to be what they made you. And then, in what will surely be recorded as the most bizarre moment in arena history, Grimjaw sat down, just. Saturday. Down 300 kills. 300 opponents torn apart, crushed, eviscerated. And this 8-foot murder machine sat down like a trained pet because a human asked nicely. The crowd erupted into chaos, confusion, and arguments about whether this meant bets were void. The crowd noise hit levels I did not think were physically possible. 16,000 beings screaming, arguing, demanding answers, throwing beverage containers at each other because apparently, watching a human not die was somehow more offensive than watching 300 others actually die. The betting boards crashed. Literally crashed. Sparks shot out of the main terminal as the algorithms tried to calculate odds for an outcome that should not exist. Brisk was having some kind of breakdown in the control booth. His 4 arms were doing 4 different things, none of them helpful. One was pulling his own antenna, another was smashing buttons, the third was pointing at the arena floor while the fourth apparently gave up and just hung limply at his side. This is not protocol, he shrieked into the intercom. This is not in the protocol. What protocol? I shot back. The protocol for when the unkillable murder beast decides to make friends? Down in the pit, Marcus took another step forward. Grimjaw watched him with those massive yellow eyes, still sitting, still calm. The creature's breathing had slowed. His claws, which had torn through reinforced steel and alien bone with equal ease, were retracted. He looked less like a champion killer and more like an oversized, extremely dangerous puppy. Marcus reached out slowly, telegraphing every movement. I wanted to scream at him to stop, to run, to do literally anything other than try to pet the thing that had turned 300 beings into past tense versions of themselves. But my voice caught in my throat as his hand made contact with Grimjaw's scarred hide. The arena fell silent again. You could have heard a credit chip drop in the upper stands. Grimjaw leaned into the touch. By the 7 moons of Tarkos, I breathed. He is actually petting it. That is not an it, Marcus called out, somehow hearing me across 50 yards of arena floor. His voice was not loud, but in that silence, it carried like a gunshot. His name is Grimjaw, and he is tired of killing. Aren't you, friend? Grimjaw made a sound I had never heard before. A low, rumbling chirp that seemed to come from deep in his chest. If I did not know better, I would say it sounded almost like contentment. The head promoter, a Vaxillian named Creed who wore more jewelry than sense, stormed into the control booth. His tentacles were flailing in what I recognized as extreme agitation. What is happening down there? Why is my asset fraternizing with the merchandise? Your asset, I said slowly, appears to have made a friend. I do not pay that beast to make friends. I pay it to make corpses. Creed's voice hit frequencies that made my translator implant whine. Activate the shock collar. Make it kill something. Brisk's hand hovered over the controls, but he hesitated. Sir, that might just make it angry. It is supposed to be angry. That is the entire point. No, Brisk said quietly, and I had never respected him more than in that moment. I mean, it might make it angry at us. That stopped Creed cold. Because Grimjaw's holding cells were built to keep him in, not to keep us safe if he decided to get out. And right now, the only thing standing between us and 8 feet of justifiably furious predator was a human who apparently spoke fluent murder beast. Down in the pit, Marcus was now sitting in the sand next to Grimjaw, one hand still resting on the creature's side. He was talking, too quiet for the microphones to pick up, but whatever he was saying, Grimjaw was listening. The beast's head was tilted, his eyes focused on Marcus with an intensity that was somehow less threatening and more attentive. Aquelin in the front row, drunk on something that smelled like fermented regret, stood up and shouted, "Fight already." I did not pay 60 credits to watch interspecies therapy. Several others joined in, the crowd's bloodlust overriding their confusion. They had come for violence, and by all their various gods, they wanted violence delivered. Marcus looked up at the stands, his expression hardening. When he spoke, his voice somehow carried through the entire arena, clear and cold. You want a fight? Fine. But not with him. He stood up, and Grimjaw stood with him, moving to Marcus's side like a bodyguard taking position. The human pointed at the promoter's booth, directly at Creed. How about you come down here and fight him yourself? Marcus called out. Since you are so fond of forcing others to kill for your entertainment. Or are you only brave when you are behind reinforced glass and profit margins? The crowd noise shifted. Some cheered. Others booed. But many, I noticed, were nodding. There is something universal across species. Everyone hates a hypocrite. Creed's face turned 3 shades of purple. I did not know his species could achieve. You cannot talk to me like that. I own this arena. I own that beast. You own nothing, Marcus said, and his voice carried such conviction that I almost believed him. You exploit. You profit from pain. You built your fortune on forcing beings to kill or be killed. But you know what? I think your champion just quit. Grimjaw chose that moment to roar. Not the killing roar I had heard 300 times before. This was different. Louder. Longer. A sound that shook the arena walls and made every being in the stands remember that despite his current docile behavior, Grimjaw was still very much an apex predator. The crowd panicked. Beings trampled each other trying to reach the exits. Credits scattered across the floor. Someone's child was crying. It was beautiful chaos, and I have never been prouder to witness absolute bedlam. Creed activated the shock collar. It was a mistake. Grimjaw's roar turned to a howl of pain as electricity coursed through his body. He collapsed, convulsing, his claws gouging deep furrows in the arena sand. And Marcus, that absolutely unhinged human, threw himself onto Grimjaw's neck, his fingers scrabbling at the collar. Turn it off, he screamed. Turn it off or I swear I will come up there and turn you off. But Creed was not listening. His tentacles were locked on the control panel, his eyes wide with fury and fear and the realization that he had lost control of his prized asset. If I cannot have him, nobody can. I made a decision then. Probably a career-ending one, but I was tired of watching beings suffer for profit. I pulled my sidearm and shot the control panel. The shock collar died. Grimjaw's convulsions stopped. And Creed turned to me with an expression that promised lawsuits, prison time, and possibly creative murder. You are fired, he hissed. Good, I said. I was starting to hate this job anyway. Down in the pit, Marcus had managed to pry the collar open. It fell to the sand, smoking and sparking. Grimjaw lay there, breathing hard, looking up at Marcus with those yellow eyes. And then, slowly, painfully, the beast stood for a moment. I thought he might go berserk. Might tear apart the arena, the crowd, everything. 300 kills worth of rage and pain and abuse, all about to come due. Instead, Grimjaw nuzzled Marcus like a cat seeking affection. The human laughed, the sound bright and genuine in the shocked silence. Yeah, he said, scratching behind one of Grimjaw's ear spikes. We are getting you out of here, buddy. No more fighting. No more pain. Just freedom. You cannot do that. Creed shrieked. He is property. He is worth millions. He is a person, Marcus shot back. And I am taking him. Try to stop me. Creed looked at Grimjaw, 8 feet of muscle and claws who was now very much on the human side. He looked at me, standing there with my weapon drawn and my employment terminated. He looked at Brisk, who had very deliberately turned away from his control station and was suddenly fascinated by the ceiling. Creed did the smart thing. He ran. The human and the beast walked out of the Bloodforge Arena together, through the western gate that had seen 300 opponents enter and none leave alive. The crowd parted for them like water around a ship, nobody stupid enough to get in their way. I followed them out, because honestly, what else was I going to do? File for unemployment. In the streets outside, Marcus stopped and turned to me. "Thank you," he said. "For shooting the panel." "Yeah, well," I shrugged, holstering my weapon. 300 was enough. Time someone broke the streak. "What will you do now?" he asked. I looked at him, at Grimjaw standing beside him like a loyal guardian, at the arena behind us that had been my life for 17 cycles. "I have no idea," I admitted. "Maybe find honest work. Maybe travel. Maybe follow you too and see what other impossible things you accomplish before lunch." Marcus grinned. "We would not mind the company. After all, every battle brother could use a good friend watching his back." And that is how I, Vex, former security guard at a blood sport arena, became traveling companions with a human and a reformed murder beast. We left Station Omega-7 that night on a transport ship Marcus had apparently won in a card game, which raises questions I am still afraid to ask. Word spread across the galaxy about what happened. About the human who entered the pit unarmed and left with a battle brother. Some say it is a myth. Others swear it is true. I know it happened because I was there, and I carry the termination notice from Creed as proof. The Bloodforge Arena closed 3 months later. Without Grimjaw, attendance dropped. Without attendance, profits died. Creed tried to replace him with other fighters, but none lasted. Turns out when you build your entire business model on one unkillable champion, losing that champion tends to tank your stock value. Last I heard, Creed was working in waste management on a mining colony. Grimjaw was living on a sanctuary planet, teaching rescue operations to younger beings and only using his considerable talents for good. Marcus was still traveling, still finding impossible situations and somehow making them possible, and me? I am doing fine. Better than fine, actually. Because I learned something important that day in the arena. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not fight. Sometimes the strongest choice is compassion. And sometimes, just sometimes, the human really does know what they are talking about, even when every logical brain cell you possess is screaming that they are completely insane. 300 kills ended not with violence, but with friendship. That is the kind of impossible that only humans could pull off, and honestly, I would not have it any other way.